What do you do when you find the perfect paper at the paper source, but it's a little bit too delicate to hold the shape of a paper flower petal? You innovate. Stick around and I'll show you my dyeing, binding, and paper making process for using delicate papers. Get ready to make one of the most high-end and elegant tulips you've ever seen. I just love this paper from the paper source, but it's just a little bit too delicate to work with. So I would like to almost make a liner for it that will help reinforce it. And I also want to add a gradient to it so that all the petals look a little different. And I was able to score a matching green for the leaves. So let's make some high-end, elegant tulips. The first thing I did was connect my tissue paper and my paper source paper, just so I have the right size. And I'm going to cut the strips for the petals together so that they're all exactly the same size. Now I am going to unfasten the white paper from the paper source paper because I do not want to dye paper source paper. I don't have the heart in me to dye that gorgeous paper. So I'm going to put those aside. And I think when I bind this with this, when it's dyed, it's going to give it a beautiful gradient. So the liner itself is going to provide the gradient tone. So I just get the packets ready for dyeing by just folding them up like this. Make sure any edges that fold under get straightened out before you dye them. If you need to put a clip so that they stop folding over, you can do that. So now for the fun part, we're going to dip our tissue paper into the dye and then let them start to drain. And I tried to pull as many colors that would complement that paper. I know it has some orange tones, so I kind of want to do something kind of like this, but very faint, maybe a little red, and something like that. So I'm really just going to start playing around and being a little bit of a chemist. And the trick is always that you're going to try it on a white paper towel first to see what kind of color you have. Plum berry. I want a little bit of plum berry, I think. Now I know it's going to be a little too dark, but now if I get the right tone, I can dilute it. Dilute. Okay, so now to prevent a line from when you dye, I'm gonna wet the paper first under my faucet. So now when I put it in the dye, it's gonna have a much more even tone to it. And I'm gonna put them in my drain board like this so that the paper drips down and I'll get some beautiful drips. It's okay if they kiss. So now we'll let these dry and then we can bind our paper together. In the meantime, I'm going to do the same thing and cut the leaves out. So I'm starting with my leaves. It's this great paper, and the way I'm treating it is I'm acting as if this paper from the paper source is 2 layers of tissue paper because it's that thin. So I want to add one more sheet there and put the wires in the middle, and then I have 3 sheets behind it of tissue, and I'm going to bind them all together. But the first step I'm going to do is after that second sheet, I'm just going to fold this up about halfway, and I'm figuring how many leaves I'll get across. And I'm just going to start to, this is just a little bit of tacky glue, and I'm just going to put some on it just to get it tacky. so that the leaf wire stays in place while I finish gluing the paper together, because I am going to flip it at some point. And then I just want to see like what's my spacing between, so it looks like that's my spacing right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep gluing them. You can actually glue a bunch at one time. What I did find is if there's too much glue on these, it leaves like a funny black mark along the stem. So I try to almost wipe it back off. I really just want it to be tacky. And I'm doing these about 2 inches apart. Because the tulip leaves are so big, like long, I want the wire to have a lot of support in there. I'm gonna try to stick one more on that end. I think that'll work. And then you just fold this down and kind of press. And I do want to start, when I bind these, I want to start them this way so that when I flip them, this side will be up in the drying process. So I'm actually going to do that now. So after 3 sheets, 1, 2, 3, I'm folding it up about halfway and inserting my wires with a little tacky glue. So now I've mixed my Mod Podge matte, because I did have a problem when I made my Harry Styles flower. On the leaves, they got this like plasticky, filmy look in spots, and I didn't want that to happen with this paper, so I'm using totally matte glue, and I added 3 parts water. So we're just gonna brush that across. First thing, always take out your paper clips. And then you're just gonna take as big of a stroke as you can and kind of come back the other way. And now your paper won't slide, so it's a little easier to manage. And you want to saturate it pretty well without oversaturating it. I know that's vague. We are going to flip it over so you'll know for sure it's saturated all the way through. So that's why I say you don't have to oversaturate it, because we are going to go back. So again, 1 down the middle. And now at least they won't slide. So it just started to kind of go through this paper. And this is the paper I want on top when I put the weights on. No gloves. I think I am ready to cover this up. If you feel like it has a little too much glue, just grab a paper towel and kind of blot. So I'm laying out the pink petal paper that I got from Paper Source, and then I also had dyed 2 sheets for each strip of white tissue paper. We did that yesterday. It dried, and this is how it came out. So I'm actually layering the Paper Source paper on the bottom and putting the 2 gradient tissue sheets on top, and then I'm going to bind them. If they start doing this and not cooperating, you have to tame your paper. 1 little spritz of water on it just kind of shows it who's boss. It doesn't saturate it by any means, but it gives you, it just kind of relaxes it. So when it keeps bending up like that and it's difficult to lay flat, you can just spritz it a little bit and then run your hand over it. And now it'll stay pretty lined up with my sheet below it. Just a little handy tip. We're going to mix the glue for this, and I don't want any glossy glue. So I'm going to use Mod Podge matte with the ratio of 3 times the amount of water. I want to swoop down the center each way. Now, I won't lie, I've got these really close together. That's a little dangerous, but I think we'll be okay. I'm being so gentle. I'm barely painting this on. You really just want the water and the glue to do their thing. And as lightly as you can put that on there. That's it. All right, now we're going to flip. I don't know yet if the gradient is going to show through. I think I'll find that out when it dries. very excited about these tulips. Even if the gradient doesn't show, at least the paper is stronger. And that's what I needed, a little more stiffness to the paper to hold the flower petal shapes. The first time I did this, it was really a little risky. You know, you're buying a decently priced paper at the paper source and then you're messing it up. You know, you're getting it wet, you're gluing it, adding to it, changing it. I have always been happy with how it comes out. It does not ruin the paper. This is the official last strip, and then our tulips will go to sleep for like 72 hours, and then we'll be ready to cut and assemble them. I want to show you how I'm making the tulip center. What you're going to need is some yellow floral tape, and I'm using 3 18-gauge wires. I'm going to cut very small pieces of this because you're really only using a tiny bit, so 6 pieces in total. I like to just cover one and kind of twist it with my fingers like that, and then to secure that on, I just like to put one around. We're going to do all 3 of those real quickly. And it doesn't matter how far down it goes because we're going to cover it with the green floral tape. So then you're going to take all 3 and together we're going to tape them with our green. And I like to do it about that high. And then you're just going to wind the green tape all the way to the bottom. When you've got all 3 like that, you're just going to try to separate them a little bit with your finger, enough so that you can get your needle on those pliers, and you're just going to pull them down, just like that. So now I've got some shiny stone sand, and we're only going to use a tiny bit of this. And I put a little bit of tacky glue on a Post-it note. Now you just want a piece of tissue paper about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and then you're going to just cut little strips. What is that, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch? Just like that. And you're going to need 6 for each center. And you can see I'm not being super careful or anything because we're literally going to twist them. We're going to dip a little bit of glue on the end and then dip it in the sand. And then let these dry. And like I said, we're going to need 6 for each flower. Now once you have your 6 ready, we're just going to put them between these 3 in pairs. So what I like to do is take some of that tacky glue on your finger and just rub it there. We just want them to stick long enough that we can get the floral tape around them. I'm just going to try to stick 2 in each section there. Now once you have all 6 around, you're just going to tape it again with the floral tape. And that is your tulip center. You can space these out however you want. I have now cut out all my leaves, and I want to show you how I treated them. I just put the cut leaves on a rubber mat with a piece of foam underneath. I sprayed them lightly with a mister, and then I just roll fondant tool along the edges, and it gives it a very nice round shaping that really resembles the tulip. I think it really is a little bit better than just curling it this way. It kind of gives it a full kind of cup thing. So I have all of these done, my petals. I did the same thing with the leaves. I cut the leaves, I taped them, and then I also ran the fondant tool along each of them just to give them a little finished edging. And now I am ready to hot glue them to the centers that we had previously created. And the first petal, it doesn't really matter where it goes, and I'm just winding it pretty much around. Now the thing with the tulip is there's two rows of petals. Each row has 3. So you're dividing this full space between 3. So each petal's kind of going to take a third of the room. And again, I just wet this a little bit so that it doesn't rip if I push too hard when I apply it. So I'm kind of overlapping so that I'll have room for one more petal. So now the second row of petals is always just covering the cracks that you created with the first round. So I'm doing the same thing with the next 3 petals. I'm going to cover the crack. So there's one crack. And I apply the bottom first and then pull up and make sure it's lining up where I want it to be. So now the next crack. And then this would be where the last one is going. Tulip leaves kind of come up along the bloom almost. I like to have them almost kind of high up, almost like they're trying to hide the bloom. And when I add a new leaf, I always cut the previous leaf where I'm going to add the new one so that my stem wire doesn't keep getting fatter and fatter. And then I always go up and over. Finish a stem, I like to put one piece of tape this way and then take another piece of tape and go backwards up the stem. Just like that. Curl it and then squeeze a little. Here they are, the tulips made from the paper source paper. I'm a little attached to them, I have to confess. And I'm happy the way adding the liner to them gave the petals enough texture to work with. Otherwise they would have just kind of been flopping. And I even like how the leaves came together, putting the wire in between with tissue paper backing. Overall, really like this project. Thought this vessel was a good vase to show them off, and I put a few extra leaves in the bottom, but I really enjoyed this project. I love making tulips. They're one of the easier flowers to make. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you always know when I have a new tutorial. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer you. Keep blooming.